Thank you for being here. Say that most, if not all of us in the room have interacted, continue to interact with DCFS on a regular basis, and it is really important, and we are really delighted to welcome with us this morning Joi Russell, who's the Deputy Director, Service Bureau 1 with DCFS, and we are delighted to welcome you, and please join me in welcoming Joi Russell.
Thank you very much. I'm just thrilled to be here, and I have to tell you, looking around the room, I see friends of mine who have been friends for over 20 years, Barbara Philippone, colleagues Jerry and Phyllis Levine, Curly Kelly, who I terrorize on a regular basis. Kelly works with me. I see previous students. I see colleagues from Long Beach State. I see colleagues from just the work area. So this is really exciting for me. I am a Deputy Director for Department of Children's Services, and what does that mean? That means I have one of the 4 service bureaus. So I'm over the Lakewood office, the Torrance office, the Belvedere office, the Santa Fe Springs office, all of adoptions for the whole county, and all the youth development services, all the emancipating youth. So I have about 2,800 people that report to me directly or indirectly. Today's topic is talking about child abuse, but folks, let's just talk about anything. Any questions that you have about the department, any complaints, I want to hear them, because that's the way that we solve things. Any complaints, $1 a complaint. You know, so we know that. But what we're trying to do at DCFS is we're trying to build collaboration among our community partners, with our parents, with each other. That's one that we have got to get through as a community. These aren't just our kids, they're all of our kids. And we've got to figure out a better way of dealing with them, and actually prevention ahead of time. So just something to think about. How many of you guys have called up to the Child Protection Hotline and made a referral? And of those, how many of those did you find was it challenging? Yeah, let's be honest about it, huh? Okay. You know, I was up there. I was up there from October of 03 to March of 05. Didn't want to go. Did not want to go up there to work. It was not one of the best places to work in the department. Pretty angry. And those of you who kind of know me and know I'm not shy about voicing my opinion. But you know, you go where you go and you learn. And what I learned was that most of those people are fabulous. I learned to love the job up there. But I learned that there are some certain things that we had to do. One of the things the director asked me to do when I got up there was reduce the number of calls coming in. So I said, well, if we change the phone number and not give it out, that would he didn't see the sense of humor in that until later. Finally saw it. Then he wanted me to reduce the number of referrals that we take. I'm like, are you kidding me? If calls are coming in, but you know what? Given a task, you figure out a way of doing it. And it made sense to me. And what was happening is we were getting a lot of calls that weren't for us. Okay, they were for people to call up and say, these kids have head lice. That's a public health issue. That's not a child abuse issue. This child's not going to school. That's a SARB issue. This child was abused by a neighbor. Mom and dad were appropriate. That's third-party abuse. We even had people in our own department calling up the hotline and saying, you know, Kelly used to work on our office. Do you know where she's working now? Are you kidding me? You're calling me up, who's reporting child abuse, to ask me for a phone number for another employee? But this is what was happening. So that was our second task. Our third task is in LA County, we have either immediates or 5 days. The rest of the state, the referral comes in, it's either immediate or 10-day. LA County didn't think that that was a good thing, so we went to 5 days. What the director wanted us to do was decrease the number of immediates and increase the number of 5 days. Really screen out those referrals, which we did. So when I left, we had 45% were immediates, 55% were 5 days. That's still the highest in the state, so it's not a good thing that we're doing there. Most of the staff up there were fabulous. Do we have some unique staff up there? Yes. Who doesn't have unique staff, right? We have some that are just unique, and that, you know, when I would walk around, I had one staff that would take like 50 referrals a day. How is that possible? Then I looked at the quality of his referrals, and it was crap. Then I had another one that would take 3 a day. Oh, they were fabulous. But she had stopped doing assessment and was doing social work. So there's a happy medium. So then what happens when you get offline is after you take your referral, it goes out to line. And Kelly is an ER supervisor in the Lakewood office. And so it goes that line. Well, I would check to see how long is it taking to get out there. And on average, it should take, from when the call actually comes in to when it gets to the social worker's hands, it should take an hour and a half. That's what we look for, by the time it goes to the supervisor and everything else. Currently, they're taking 2.5 hours. So that's a challenge for our department. So realize that's something that we are working on, because we've got to get better at this. It's just, we have a new chief deputy director by the name of Ted Myers, and we're going to invite him to one of these things. He's from Ventura County, and he has a lot of ideas about this. And his county actually was one of the lowest ones for immediates, and seemed to work quite well. So we've got to figure out what we're doing there. But like I said, anything you want to talk about besides the hotline or reporting child abuse, feel free to just raise your hand anytime you want. You know, we have mandated reporters, and I gave you guys a PowerPoint, but I don't like to go through the PowerPoint on the screen because I find that detracts from people actually listening to you. You know, I want to engage with you guys. I want to have a serious conversation with you guys, because this is very serious. So the state of California about 11 years ago put up CVS CMS, which is a statewide database for all the social work departments to use. And it tracks everything we do. So it tracks, you know, the calls coming in from referrals all the way to adoptions. And when we report child abuse, we report in 6 major categories: physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, severe neglect, exploitation. Which one of those do you think is the highest reported abuse every month? Neglect. Neglect is the highest that we have. Age category. Do we want to take an age category for the highest number of kids that we have in our department? What age category? Under 5? No. Because kids can't report when they're under 5 is a problem. We lose them a lot of times because of that. About 7 to 12 is right. That's where we have. Male, females. Who do we report more? Male or female abuse? You know, it's 50-50. It's 50-50 right now. You know, it used to be different, but it's 50-50. Times are changing. And it's kind of pendulum kind of swings one way to another way. So we know if there's a big movie coming out that has to deal with child abuse, we know our referrals are going to go up. People are more aware of it. People want to call in. They want to do something. We know that. We know we go in cycles. We go in cycles because we have school. So our high months for referrals are October, March, and June. Why? October, the schools start to see a pattern with the kids. Okay, they start seeing a pattern with kids coming in very tired, not sleeping, coming in dirty, the same clothes, coming in hungry, can't pay attention. March, the same thing. New semester coming up. May and June, why? Because the teachers are getting out of school. So that's right. They want to report it. They kind of feel guilty. Let me just report it. So we see a huge surge from our schools. 40% of our referrals are from schools. Okay? So, you know, we see that. So we're kind of geared up for that. We kind of know that that's coming for us. Every one of our offices, we have 17 offices right now. Every one of our offices is a full service office. What does that mean? It means it has emergency response, family maintenance, family unification, permanency planning, and adoptions. It wasn't always that way. We thought that we would have adoptions in their own special building, way downtown where nobody could find them. Well, that didn't work for us because we have to work together. So we moved adoptions out into every single office now. And that was kind of nice. In fact, in the Lakewood office, we had them downstairs in their own special area. Now, you'd think we had learned by putting them in their own special buildings and communication was poor. But oh no, we decided to bring them out to the regional offices and put them in their own special areas. So that isolated them again. We finally moved them up where the social workers that they work with sat with, and what a difference it made. Communication's right there. So that's a good thing for us. A lot of times the referral will come into the hotline and there'll be previous referrals on there. And because the system tracks the referrals, it'll track for the last 11 years what the referrals are. There are times where we'll have 20 previous referrals on a family. Does your red flag go up? Sure. Does it mean it's an instant, immediate response? No. Why not? It could be a family dispute. Mom's calling against dad, dad's calling against mom, mothers-in-law call against each other. It's one of those things that we see. So when the call comes into the hotline, it is always assessed as that single call. Okay, it's assessed as that single call. There are some standard questions that we should be asking that I'm going to go through. And then that worker has to decide whether or not, based on that call, whether or not a referral is going to happen. And one of the complaints I get most of all is people will call up to the hotline and they'll say they won't take my referral. folks, it's the terminology that you use. I think the child may be this, da-da-da-da. If you see bruises, say, I actually saw bruises on this child there 2 days ago, da-da-da-da-da. If not, people will call me up and I'll say, call back again. Be firmer in what you're saying. If you get somebody who thinks she's not listening to you, ask for the supervisor. Ask for the assistant regional administrator. All calls at the hotline are recorded. All calls at the hotline are recorded. So what would happen, did you guys know that? Yeah, they're all recorded. And up comes, so you guys will know, up comes your phone number. Now, can you remain anonymous? Absolutely. They don't record that phone number up there, but when you're dialing in, we see that phone number, okay? But it remains anonymous for your protection as well as our protection. But what happens a lot of times, what I used to see was therapists, you know, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and Barbara and I used to practice when dinosaurs ruled the world. Go Barbara, yeah, that's right. And so what would happen is sometimes therapists would call in a referral, and then when the clients came in for therapy, they kind of hemmed and hawed, and I really didn't say that. That's not what I said. We would go back and pull up the recording, and sure enough, that's exactly what they said. Not to point fingers, but to let the social worker know this is how strong the therapist felt. The therapist is in a different role than you are, social worker, so understand that when you call the therapist back. So that's kind of a good thing for us, because we can also see the tone of some of our workers up there. Like I said, most of them are fabulous, but in any organization you have some they're a little challenging, and you know, we try to work with them on that. So the calls should last about a half an hour. We're starting to be more proactive now. So in fact, the first time we ever had law enforcement on, and I so much appreciate Long Beach being here, first time we ever had, one of the questions was, what's a family's strengths? And law enforcement was like, well, how the hell do we know? So we found after this little pattern, we just don't, when it's law enforcement calling, we don't ask that question anymore. They're not going to give us the answer. But for the therapist, what's the family strengths? Because we are a different agency. I wish I was younger for so many reasons. So many reasons. But because I see child welfare in the nation moving to a different direction. We are going, first time ever, strength-based. Mom's a crackhead. Okay, but what's her strength? You know what? She gets that kid to school every single day. That kid is fed every single day. Find the strength in that. We had a presentation, probably the best presentation I've ever seen, about a year ago from Long Beach Police Department on drugs. And the thing that I love the most, well, this is a seasoned veteran, 25 years in, and was doing a drug presentation to us, and still had compassion for the drug parents. I love that. Understood the drug took over the parent. This wasn't a bad parent. The drugs took over. And those are some of the things that we have to remember when we're dealing with our parents. The drugs take over. So that was really good for my social workers to see that, because they understood we're here for the parents. You may not like the behavior that they're doing, has nothing to do with that person. And you know, folks, all of us in this business, we've seen it all, have we not? Nothing ever amazes us anymore. So you call the child protection hotline, you report a referral. What happens then? Well, what happens then is the social workers use this thing called structured decision making. Structured decision making is a tool that helps us assess the referral. Why do we have that? Because social workers, you know, when you have 95 people at the hotline all assessing a referral, some can say this is immediate, some can say this is a 5-day, and some can say, I don't see the abuse going on here. So we have this thing called structured decision making that's probably about 43 of the other counties use this type of thing. And what I found was that workers, when I got there, 36% of them were using them. The rest of them were not using structured decision making. Well, if you're not using the tool, it doesn't help. So we got them down to where the 99% of them were using it and using it correctly. But here's how it went with logic. I got a call from, let's say, Kelly, because you know Kelly likes to bitch at me a lot. True, Kelly?
I'm here to support you.
Yeah, today you came to support me. When we get back to the office, I know you're just gonna give me an earful. I know you so well. But let's say Kelly calls up and she'll say, "What the heck is this?" And Kelly would use a different word. And here it is. It's an immediate response. And she's looking at this thing. It's an immediate response, and it was that the dad took the child to the hospital because the child had something lodged in her ear. And I said, you know, that sounds like we shouldn't have taken that referral, but you know what, let me go down and ask my workers, because I like to find out from them, tell me. So I went down there and asked the worker, I said, tell me how you got from here to there, because I just need to understand this. And so the worker said, well, I look at SDM, I look at the definition, and it says hospitalization on there. Oh, I got it. But you thought hospitalization, the child was hospitalized for abuse, it's automatically immediate. The dad took the child there because it went to the hospital to get this thing out of his ear. That's the difference in terminology. So it's educating workers on that terminology. It's kind of like, oh. And the worker was, I mean, I saw her logic. I read the word hospitalization versus hospital. Dad was appropriate in his actions. So we evaluated the referral out. But that's the communication that we do. That's the constant thing. And you'll find out through the state, when they take us up to the state and all the counties are represented, we would all probably assess child abuse differently. Some states, Humboldt, Berkeley are a little more free-flowing, especially with drug area. They would not see, drugs as that big of an issue. Where Southern California, we kind of do. Yeah, Susan.
This is maybe a naive question. So every time a parent takes a child to the hospital, it's somebody with...
No, this wasn't it. Somebody, I don't know who the reporter was at the time.
If somebody calls.
Somebody called.
And
yes.
The issue is they've taken the child to the hospital.
Sometimes we get mandated reporters that will call on everything. We've had mandated reporters that will call back for 3 years ago. This situation happened 3 years ago. I just want to cover myself. Truly, that's exactly what happens. They'll call up and they say, this abuse happened 3 years ago. I'm just telling you now, the child's not in danger or anything else. So they'll call up. What we do is we take that. Why we take it on record? Because they want to cover themselves. I understand that. And then we evaluate it out. So it's on the system as Susan Rice called up and made a referral. We took it, we understood what was going on, we evaluated it out because the child is no longer in danger. Okay? So it's that's why we take those in, yeah.
I would like to make a point on that because training new therapists fresh out of school, the way the child abuse reporting law is written with no statute of limitations on the reporting of child abuse, and everybody's getting ready to take their licensing exams and studying like crazy and going to all these prep classes, there is a disconnect between the child abuse reporting law as it currently exists and the practice of child welfare, and it's very confusing to the trainees, to the registered interns that we supervise. And so I think, we laugh, but I understand. I'll have somebody with a master's degree in my office saying, she told me that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, mom hit her and left with a belt and left marks. And under the current child abuse reporting law, that master's level clinician does have a reporting obligation. So we haven't caught up the law to the practice.
Right, and I think I kind of still go with the old law, I have to tell you, because maybe the previous person did report. We did have a case in one of our schools where the nurse was held, civil charges brought against her because a child reported sexual abuse and the nurse did not report it. So I kind of go along with that because you just never know who the person has told and whether they've ever told anybody else. So for right now, until we change that, they have to take it. I'm just saying that people at the hotline may not want to. That's where you and your staff need to say, I want this on record. I'm reporting this so that it's in the system. Yes.
As a prosecutor, the fact that your agency is the keeper of the record, we're very grateful. There is a keeper of the record because, what if something terrible happens? There is a keeper of the record that you could go to for a history of that family. And so it may be 2 years down the line, but just get the record made so that we can say, hopefully, good job, you're not in the system anymore. But unfortunately, in my area, we're really glad that you guys keep that.
Yeah, I think we should keep it. I mean, we started the system since 1997. We also have a database called Family Children's Index. I'm a data nerd, just so you guys will know. I like data. I love data. But we have Department of Children and Family Services, Department of Public Social Services, Department of Health Services, Sheriff, and Probation. And we all download once a month. We're supposed to download once a month. Some of us don't do it. But we share stuff so we can see, what Sheriff has been at this address 15 times in the last 2 years. That might be a clue for my staff going out there. These staff go out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in every single part of the LA County. That's dangerous, folks. A lot of times law enforcement cannot get out there with us. So, but to realize that from the last 11 years, we have very good data that we look at this stuff with. Any other questions on that? Yeah.
Well, I'm with Michelle. My interns are aren't calling too, and especially like in with sexual assault, sexual abuse of a child, and then if the perpetrator is with other children, I think it's important to know, and that's a big concern of ours.
A big concern of ours too, because we know that perpetrators are transitory. We know they go from, usually, not to be mean here, gentlemen, or Jerry. Sorry, Jerry. The majority of our perpetrators are males, and so we know that they go from mom to mom to mom. We know moms have a lot of kids with different fathers. We know that men seek those things out. They look for that. They look for single females. We know that. So I think that we have to report this system. Now let me tell you, there's 3 ways of reporting. You can report in person, by telephone, and you can report in writing. There's a new way that the Department of Justice has approved us for. When I was at the hotline, I like to solve problems. And one of the things I heard from the line staff, from Kelly bitching at me, was that by the time the report comes to them, the mandated reporter report comes from them that you guys have written out or whatever, it could be 3 or 4 weeks. 3 or 4 weeks, because you call in, you have so much time to then do a written documentation. It gets to the hotline, goes down there, clerical pool, we pull it out, somebody's going to match it up to somebody else. Oh, okay, now it went out to this office. Now let's go ahead and fax this out to this office. One of the things that we did over there is, because I know automations, we changed it around. We worked with the Department of Justice, and now we have a mandated reporter website. Automatic website. You go onto DCFS, LA County Department of Children's Services, automatic website. You call up, you make a referral. They're going to give you a referral number. Okay? You have to wait a half an hour. It's an automated system. You have to wait a half an hour. After that half an hour, you go onto that mandated reporter website. You electronically do your reporting. Goes to Department of Justice instantly. Goes to the hotline electronically. Hotline says, this is a good referral number. Goes out to that regional worker instantly. And it's not handwritten, it's typed, so we can actually read what's said. And that was the other thing. It's kind of like, you get something they faxed over, and then by the time it gets to the worker, it's like, are you kidding me? We can't read this. So that was a great thing. So it's a mandated reporter website. The county, the state of California will be adopting this in the new system from LA County, because they realize that our mandated reporters, we need to have something that's going to help everybody out. You guys can save it to your database. You can print it out at your place. Tori.
The other good thing is that they'll give you a number while you're talking to them. Give them that number, and it'll automatically put in the worker that you spoke to, which is a good liability thing for us. So I mean, it just kind of gives all their information of the person you spoke to. That's a real positive.
It's a great positive thing, because again, it's team building. It's team building. I like to hear, when I was at the hotline, my staff were not nice. I need to hear that.
Joi, can you repeat the website?
Well, it's our DCFS website.
And the address was DCFS?
Yeah. LosAngelesCounty.gov. And it's right there for you, yeah.
Joi, when are we going to start actually getting to the ER worker?
It's not getting to the ER worker now? Okay, let me take that back. Barbara, can I borrow one of your pen? You're such a good person, Barbara. I take back some of what I've said about you.
Not everything, just part of it.
Okay, so you're saying that it's not getting back to the ER worker?
That's what I'm hearing. Because a lot of times, of course, what we say the hotline may not exactly get on the written referral. So it's nice to back it up with what we actually type in ourselves, our own words. So if that actually gets to the worker, that's great.
That's after you filled it out, right, Eric? Okay. Great, that's good to know. That's good to know, yeah.
I think one of the training issues that I see that would be helpful with DCFS is that as we've moved toward this new approach and this new philosophy of working with families, it does mean that our substantiation rate is lower. Our substantiated child abuse rate in LA County is lower than in a lot of other major cities, and that may be a good thing. I don't know yet. But the thing that's frustrating in terms of being a mandated reporter and training other people who are mandated reporters is and this happens to us time and time again, is when the family is told, we don't know why anybody called this in. And I know they're not supposed to say that, but that message gets communicated all the time to our clients. And we don't know, there was no reason to call this in. There's not a problem here. We don't, however it's being said, what gets communicated to our clients is that the therapist unnecessarily made the report. And there's got to be a way to, and this came up, we did a big training. Tim Barvey came out and did a wonderful training with our staff, and the therapists affirmed that what they get back from their clients, when a report gets made and it gets investigated and there's not enough there to substantiate it, or it gets handled in a different way, referring, connected to community services, the message to the client is the therapist overreacted, or the therapist didn't really need to call this in. And I have a problem with that because it's, I don't, does anybody else experience that? Do I have any amens to that?
I experienced that as an MFT intern. Like I'll ask my supervisor can say just call, and then as soon as I tell the client about it, they're like, well, you're overreacting, and I can't really explain to the client.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think we need to bring that back to the line social workers, because they shouldn't be saying that. They can be saying we've assessed this and da-da-da-da. One of the things you're going to be seeing is that we're wrapping services around our clients more. So our substantiated rate, number one, we got rid of the fluff cases, and we had a lot of fluff cases, folks. Kids were late for school by 15 minutes every single day. That's a fluff case. Why are we taking this thing? So we have to go out there. We legally have to go out there. Once the regional office gets it, unless it's evaluated out, they legally have to go out there. Only 7% of our referrals are ever opened. Only 7%. We get 15,000 calls a month to report child abuse. 15,000 a month. Okay, only 7 of those ever get promoted from referral to a case. But we're trying to do better at that. We're trying to do wraparound services for our families. If the kids can stay home safely, we want to do that. And we're finding we're having a good, that's coming out to be a very positive thing. Our recidivism rate is going down, which means the calls are coming back to us. Do we have some ways to go there? Oh, sure we do. But this is a good thing, and I like this cross-training thing, because I think cross-training really helps. I like when you guys come to our office and have a discussion as far as what you're seeing out there, because the social workers really need that. They need to hear that. We have a foster mother who's quite verbal and tells us every single day what's wrong with us, but some of the stuff she's saying to us is right on. And my social workers need to hear that, especially the younger ones. Yeah?
What happens with cases where there are children present during adult domestic violence? Because I know that you're supposed to be called, but it doesn't fit into any of these categories of this, well, kind of emotional abuse, but they're, they could even be in the other room, or as we heard, I think last month when we were here, or that they're present, but they weren't really in harm's way, but still people have to call. What happens with those? Domestic
violence we take very seriously, and so we do put it under emotional abuse. So we are asking people to call. It'd be under emotional abuse because the child is being subjected to this kind of situation. Even though the child may not be harmed physically, the child is certainly harmed mentally. So it's under emotional abuse.
And then when you talk about non-substantiated, or the child left in, you're trying to leave the child in the home.
Right. We have three different ways. If a case comes in, we can find it unfounded. That means, we went out there, didn't find anything. Inconclusive, something was going on, but not enough for us to make an open case on, and then substantiated. On our inconclusive ones, we will give referrals to other agencies that, there's something going on here, maybe you do better with parenting, how to do housekeeping or something else. There's something else going on here, mom and dad, but not enough for us to open a referral. And I'll tell you the reason why, folks. If there's an inconclusive or substantiated, it gets reported to the Department of Justice. If you are a school teacher and you have an inconclusive, that affects your job. If you're a social worker, that affects your job. So anything where you have to be live scanned at, it's a hit. And we had, I will tell you, we had 2 medical doctors that had such a nasty divorce. We told them, you know what, the emotional abuse you're doing to your kids is absolutely terrible. It was like the 15th call. We told them next time we have to file. And they finally got it, and it meant their jobs. But it's like you can't keep putting your kids through this, and we know that happens in divorces. People just use these poor kids as pawns.
And so they get told something like that, because when I hear these other social workers saying that their clients are getting kind of a different story from the social worker, they're getting told, you're acting inappropriately and if you don't stop it.
Right, and that comes back, that's going back to the social workers in the field of just saying, you know, if you're going to assess something as unfounded, inconclusive, there's a way of saying it, that's a professional way of saying it, that there's something going on, we're not going to open up a case, but I really suggest that you get some help, and here's the agencies that we're going to refer you over to. Tori?
Out of the 7% that result in open cases, how many of those result in child detention?
Probably about 3%. 3%. Our family maintenance numbers are going up, our family reunification numbers are going down. And again, I think the thing that's catching here is the fact that we're not getting the recidivism rate. If we were seeing the recidivism calls coming back in again, then that's something we have to do differently, but we're not seeing that. We're seeing, and I have to tell you, it's our community partners. It's you guys out there working with the families, getting them the services they need, and the families, they feel it. The families feel it. We actually have mothers that were on previous caseloads of ours coming back and working with other mothers. I mean, that's how nice this whole thing is. It's kind of like they've experienced it, so it's kind of like, you know, and they'll get up there and say, you know, I think DCFS is one of the stupidest organizations in the world, and the social worker is dumb. However, I'm here because I now believe in what they're doing. That's a good thing for us, I think.
I would like to say something about the category of inconclusive, just briefly, not to go off on a tangent on that. But I'm thinking about it because I did a study with 6 foster care agencies. A couple of years ago, we had 1,000 kids in the study, so these were the private agencies. And we looked at abuse allegations for foster parents, and 25% of the allegations were in an inconclusive category. And what's the old expression, statistics are people with the tears washed off. And the idea was that for every one of those, we were concerned because if it didn't really happen, they had the trauma of the experience. And it was hard to deal with that because they had CCL, they had all these different people. And then, if it did happen, you still had a child maybe still there. And so the child is looking to the adults for protection, and it was the clinical issues that the agencies, they couldn't get their hands around. So we could move on with their numbers, but the clinical piece stayed, and we could never kind of sort out how to do that. So that inconclusive, and when we did the lit review on this, we found that some states, if you would notice, don't even have that category. It's a forced choice. You have to go one way or another, which has its own set of challenges. But from a clinical perspective, I think that inconclusive is kind of challenging.
It is challenging, and we also have the we do track abuse in foster care and abuse in relative care. Which is higher? Relative care is higher. Abuse in relative care. Yeah.
I run a legal domestic violence clinic, and we come across these unsubstantiated letters all the time. And of course, in the case of our clients, there is both real violence and high conflict relationships, so there's a lot of DCFS involvement. But the issue that we have as an ongoing problem is when the social worker will say to them, look, I won't open a case if you go and get a restraining order. And sometimes there aren't grounds for a restraining order because there hasn't been a recent incident that would rise to the level that a judge would grant it. And they come to us absolutely desperate and say, the social worker says if I don't have a restraining order by 5 o'clock, she's going to open a case and take my kids. So that's also a training issue that, you know, anything that we can do to help.
Now, and I think it's education, because when I was at the hotline, I had to send a staff down to Superior Court who sat there to do restraining orders. And the moms would go in there and the judge would say, you know, what do you need one for? And I don't know, the social worker told me to come here. You know, and that's just kind of like, we're trying to get out of the bullying role. And in some cases, we have been that way, and some we haven't. But, you know, I mean, it's education. I remember one time when I was in the Lakewood office, I was out front, and one of the supervisors was telling the mom, you know, we're going to take your kids if you don't leave dad. And mom didn't want to leave dad. She made it very clear. And the supervisor screaming at her. And I said, stop. Stop. She's made her decision. We have to protect these kids. She has made her decision. She wants to stay with the abuser. That's it. It's not personal with you. That's what she wants to do. Give her referrals. Let's make sure the kids are safe. But it comes from educating people, because we do send a lot of people down there. And when we started sending social workers down to Superior Court to see this stuff, they started getting it, that we're not doing the right thing there. So, you know, we
send any number of them to our clinic in the London Shore Pass. We're happy to see them.
Well, I will be sending, maybe I will, Bill Bedrosian is regional administrator of the Lakewood office. So I'll be sending Bill a lot of the stuff that he can go do training, which he'll love me for, right, Kelly? I know. I know. Yeah.
I just had a few
talking a lot of statistics. How do we access the statistics on county?
If you go to our website, we have statistics that go back to 1999, and it will tell you number of referrals, type of referrals, where our kids are at, ages. It's a really great database.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head what percentage of kids taken from the home are because the mother failed to protect?
I do not know that. I'm sorry, I don't know that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. If you can ask me something I could answer, I'd feel much better. Macy's, thank you. Thank you so much. I feel so much better now. You know, I want to be able to answer one question. Yeah.
I have a question related to what's been asked and kind of what the philosophy is of DCFS on when there's domestic violence in the home, figuring out who the primary aggressor is versus failure to protect. Because we run into at sexual assault agencies all the time where mom has an open case, but there's nothing at all on dad, and that's over and over and over again. And kind of, is there any kind of philosophical piece around what should happen in those situations, or is it just always mom's there, and so there's no question about there has to be failure to protect?
Philosophically and realistically, we've done a really bad job, I have to tell you. The feds were just out here for an audit in February, and I have to just brag for 1 second. LA County had 94% child contact every month. 94%, that's amazing. What we failed in was fathers, miserably. We don't make father contact. We don't have any contact with father's family. We failed miserably at these random samples that they did. We struggle with that. We know a lot of times the female's the abuser, or there's something going on with the female, or whatever. We just fail really bad at this. There's no philosophies. We're just doing a crappy job at it that we've got to get better at. You know, we just know that. And again, it's a mindset. You don't change people overnight. How many of you guys have ever been to a team decision-making meeting? Okay, team decision-making meeting is one that we bring in the parents and the relatives and maybe the child that's age appropriate, providers like you guys, and we sit down around the table and basically say, you know, here's what's going on, and hopefully we're having an honest conversation, so that, you know, if mom is the, you know, not protecting this child, and auntie is sitting right here, we're going to say to auntie, okay, the child's going to go home with you at the end of 18 months if mom can't, and dad, which we forget about dad all the time, but if mom can't get her act together, are you willing to adopt? We're having those honest conversations. Getting the social workers to go to that and to believe in it took 18 months. Right, Kelly? Yeah. I mean, truly. It's because I already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and detain this kid. Why do I have to go to a TDM? We've changed that around. We've seen now where we get in there, so it would be the ER worker and supervisor, the FMNR worker and supervisor, and the family sitting around together. We all sit down, and usually 100% of the time, we agree, the social workers agree with each other. Wasn't always the way. ER was detaining no matter what, because I'm not going to get fired because a kid gets abused again. But now we talk about the strengths. We talk about what we can do. We get families in there, and God bless your agencies, they're at the table with us. We have families leaving our TDM meetings going into drug rehab right then and there. How fabulous is that? So those are the things that we look at. Yeah.
You know, I'm from Orange County, and it may be different up in
I'm
Colorado
sorry.
County. We're getting better. But one of the things from our TDMs are the social worker does have the final say-so when you're in these TDMs, and which can sometimes be rather frustrating. Is it that way in LA County as well?
You know, we started here where we make all the decisions, and I really don't care what you have to say. To coming over to here now, let's be a little more strength-based. Are we 100% over here all the time? No. But you work on that. You know, we have facilitators. They know going in there who some of the difficult people are. But I'd say we're moving such in the right direction. And it takes a lot of work, but it's having the managers involved, believing in it, having the clients involved, getting positive reinforcement from it, seeing it's going to work. I'm telling you, the ER workers were like, I'm detaining, I don't care what they say. And they would sit in the meetings like this. You know, and what message are you sending to the client? And it just takes that changing, because we all have our own philosophies. And some of these workers have been around for 20 years. So it's changing that. And it's a little bit doing business differently, actually doing social work. My God, we're actually doing social work and not case management. What a novel idea. Yeah.
Well, I have a concern, though, about children in domestic violence homes and they're being removed from the mother. And like last night, I've started a group, Survivors of Partner Violence, and we met last night. There were 5 women, and 4 of them had their children taken from their care. And I can assure you, I mean, I firmly believe these women were not the perpetrator, and they are suffering. They have been battered by the man, and then I feel, and I know you guys do a great job, and you've got a lot to do, but they feel as though they're being battered by the system. And we spent a lot of time, in my group, not talking about the men, but about their grieving because they don't have their children. And many of them have been in the system, their kids have been in the system so long, they are so afraid that their parental rights are going to be, terminated. And it's something that I think we all need to really focus on because we spend a lot of time doing this.
Amen. That's what I was asking about it. In fact, that's what we hear all the time. We spend time in individual and group therapy all the time.
And just to piggyback on that, this might sound really naive, but if a case is substantiated where the father's the abuser, why the hell isn't he taken out?
Yes.
And arrested. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is that?
And I longly look over at Long Beach Police Department.
Like, what's your problem, man? It's a rhetorical question, I know. But it's very frustrating for that reason because, I can't tell you how many women we see that are referred, right? And they don't know where the father is. The kids are out of the home because the mother failed to protect, even though she was a victim as well. And she's running around going to this class and this counseling and this, and she can't get a full-time job, but she needs to have to show that she can take care of the kids. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
The police is staring at the prosecutor here. And I apologize. I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot, but it's very, I feel like it's such an enormous issue.
It is a huge issue, and I have 3 stars by it. I will tell you, I understand that part of it, I truly do. I also understand the social worker where mom says, oh, the dad's never coming back again. Social worker makes an unannounced phone call and there's the dad. So we have that thing that we struggle with. That's what we struggle with. But I think coming to these kind of meetings, I think having cross trainings, making people aware of it, we've got to get a handle on it. And we absolutely do. So that's something that we need to get better at on both sides. In fact, all 3 sides of it. And so, we'll take a look at that. Yeah.
Just on the prosecutor's response to that, when it has to have a criminal case for us to have any jurisdiction, the domestic violence, and the day they walk into criminal court, they are given a protective order for the parents, and if the children were present, the children also from the perpetrator. So then it becomes the court's responsibility to allow or disallow contact. However, we find more often than not that the victims disregard the protective order and without the court's permission allow the perpetrator back in, and then you can't run hot and cold. Then you can't say, well, I have a protective order to get out, because you've canceled it even though the court legally can only cancel it. And so that's difficult because they go and they make a booty call and then that's it.
Obviously, it's a system that we have to figure out how to do this. So I think, again, us talking about it, seeing what's going on. I used to, when I was at the hotline, we had the child death reviews, and I can't tell you, probably in LA County, folks, I have to tell you 20 to 30 children die every single month in LA County. Not just from abuse, but just from car accidents and everything else. But unfortunately, every one of them comes past the deputy director's desk, so we see it all. And one of the things that I just didn't understand until I worked with the LA district attorney on how come we don't prosecute fathers that sexually molest the kids. In some cases they don't because they don't want to traumatize the child again. And I did not know that because we were taking a hit from our department, and sometimes it's a situation, is a kid a reliable witness? So those are the things that, the domestic violence, we've got to get a handle on it because it's happening across the board, and I don't think any of us are doing great, to be honest with you. Yeah.
So is there any cross-talking about this?
I think there is some cross-talking, not a whole lot. That's why I think these kind of meetings, having the people come to the DCFS offices, talking about what you guys are seeing out there, hearing what the social workers are seeing, and then saying, okay, now how do we fix this? Because what you're seeing is absolutely valid. What the social worker is seeing is absolutely valid. What law enforcement is seeing is absolutely valid. Mom's not going to press charges, and then for prosecution. So it's a system. It hits all of us, We gotta find a way around this thing. Kelly?
I just want to share that now with the process of TDMs, I know in my unit we do TDMs on any potential cases we deal with. So with domestic violence, we do invite community partners within, from women's shelter, from the various places to be present at those meetings to help us brainstorm on what is the best plan entirely for the family. I've recently had, as a women's shelter was just recently at one of my TDMs. Sometimes we can get the women in shelters, so that way we have their expertise coming in to look at battered women's syndrome, to look at the things. So, that is something that we're doing and that we do put out there. If you're available as an agency to participate, we go through lists of people saying, please come, we have a battered woman. We're having a meeting to determine what is the best plan. Do we need to remove the kids? Can we save the family? Can we do this? And I just want to put that out there that is happening. It may not be 100%, but that is something that but we also need agencies to sign up with us and say, we're willing to send somebody if you have this meeting. Because we all have to work together. I know that Asia Pacific has been there. We've had a lot of agencies, but the one area that we don't have a lot of agencies coming is DV. We do have the women's shelter coming occasionally and Rainbow Services. But I'm just saying that as a community, we all have to come together and determine what is in the best interest of this family. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yes.
I just want to say I've been to, maybe the first one I've been to was the one in SPA Office back maybe 4 years ago. And since then I've been to a number of TDMs, and I'm really impressed with the changes that the department's making. And I have been to TDM that were really wonderful, constructive, and then there are some that were not so. Those that were not so, maybe it's the second time around that I've been invited to, or third time, right at the edge where you guys are making decisions. And that's when I was thinking to myself, like, how come those clients, families that receive voluntary family maintenance after the PDM, why is it not very clear to the family that if they don't follow those recommendations or agreement, that the case will be open? Because a lot of times they go into PDM thinking, okay, it's a collaborative piece, and they feel that they have option not to necessarily follow the option.
Well, a voluntary is what it is, a voluntary.
Right.
So
but then, second time around when they go back to the TDM, and the family may be requesting the voluntary family maintenance to be terminated, I have seen social worker or the supervisor of social worker stating in the meeting, well, if we're going to open the case unless you follow this.
I can't talk for anyone else. I don't know.
It's challenging because
it's a very confusing message that's made given to the family.
Again, it's a work in progress. You guys just have, it's a work in progress, and we do what we do. You have positive ones, we have not so positive ones.
It is something that we're trying to work on. I will tell you though, if we have a TDM where we go with voluntary family maintenance, and 3 months goes by and they're not doing exactly what they need to go, sometimes it's not enough for us to go and make a case with the court. Sometimes the judge will say, you know what, they did something, they didn't do everything, there's not enough here for us to do that, so we also have to weigh in. And some of it, again, is the personality of the social workers and what they can and feel they can and can't do. So that's ongoing training that we have to do. That's why we need to be very clear with the family. Sometimes we don't have enough evidence to go into court. So the best we're going to get is voluntary.
I worked on a project a few years ago with Dr. Tom Lyons at USC, who does a lot of work in the DV area. And that project was focused on the training of DCFS workers in cases where domestic violence and child abuse come together. And I actually talked to a lot of social workers about the training, and it was a very positive thing, but I don't know how widespread it is, but it seemed to me that it was something that was really needed and valuable to the department to continue. And as a matter of fact, he called me about a year and a half ago and said, he wanted to do more of that thing, that I know how to, work the system a little bit to do that. So just wanted to put a plug in for more of that kind of training for social workers, because it seemed to be a really valuable thing. Workers seemed to be, receptive to it, and it did talk a lot about things like restraining orders and, working with moms and how to
Yeah.
maneuver that whole.
No, I think we need to revisit that. You know, we have 2,700 social workers in LA County in our department, and probably half of them are brand new. We have a lot of trainees, we have a lot of people coming out. So I think we have to revisit this stuff on a regular basis. And they get a little bit of it in their training, but not full saturation. So I think we need to revisit that, and I'll put that down on my list. Yeah.
I have a question. I work with the families, and I have a lot of families that they feel like social services is kind of they are abusing them because they have a case. They went one time and they are still going. They couldn't, the families actually stopped there. They cannot do anything else because they have restrictions. You have to want to believe, you have to want. A lot of kids, they have emotional problems. This case, for example, he's autistic. So he said, my mother hit me. And the next day, the social worker and police officers, they go to the houses. Is any way that they can review each case so they can review the families? Because some families, they're really ready to go back to it. They don't want to be here because whatever they do, whatever, and these kids, a lot of times they just laugh. That whatever happens, they do that. How can I help the parents to social service go back and review the cases? Because a lot of times it's just losing their time because it's not enough, the abuse is not happening.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we have to look at. I think it means with you contacting the social worker and the supervisor, you know, if you're not getting responses, folks, that you think you should be getting, contact the ARA, the assistant regional administrator, or the regional administrator. I got calls all the time from the community. Sometimes it was right on, and sometimes, you know, it wasn't, but you have to assess with the evidence that you currently have. One of the things, is anybody here from Regional Center? We struggle with Regional Center, I have to tell you. We struggle with them taking our cases, and a lot of times the families get very frustrated, especially with our autistic kids and stuff like that, that we struggle with. But you know, it's a case-by-case basis, and so we have to take it at face value. Until proven differently, we're different than criminal court. We can detain a child based on the suspicion that we think that something actually happened. So it's a little different for us. But if you're not getting the responses that you want out of the social worker, go to the supervisor, go to the assistant regional administrator. Okay? Yeah.
I have a little concern about the money not following. You know, we're getting enormous referrals to the community now of kids that would have gone into foster placement 10 years ago. And really challenging families. I mean, I've been working with a family, mom's been in recovery, we're working with a family, mom's been in recovery a year. She's got a ton of kids. They're all reunified with her way too soon from a clinical point of view. But from a child welfare point of view, important for them to be reunited. And it just concerns me, especially with our uninsured population in Long Beach, that the money stream, it reminds me of when President Reagan, when the mental hospitals were emptied out for community care, but then the money didn't follow in the 80s.
Right.
I feel like now with child welfare, these very challenging families are back on the community agencies, and if they don't have Medi-Cal, and if they went into foster care, they had Medi-Cal, the kids, but now that they're not going into the system, many of them are uninsured, and we're trying to absorb and provide the services, and I don't know if the money stream has caught up to that. And with the state budget crisis, that's a big picture issue, and I know it's not something you have control over, but I just want to make sure it's being talked about because
it truly is. I mean, you guys all know about the money crunch right now. LA County Children's Services alone is looking at a $25 million cut. $25 million cut. So anything that we thought was fluff and stuff, or things that was a luxury, we're looking at cutting that. And so I'm encouraging you to call up your senators, your congressmen. They're looking at cutting foster homes and group homes 10%. They're looking at cutting FFAs 5%. That's a huge cut. That's just a start. That's not part of the $25 million. So we've got to figure out some way there that the governor understands that this involves all of us, because you know LA County is a Title IV waiver county. And what does that mean is we placed a bet basically saying that we think in 5 years we're going to reduce the number of kids so substantially that that extra money can be put back into the community. Well, I can't tell you the things that have gone wrong with us so far. I mean, we had the 5% increase to foster homes and group homes. We'd anticipate that came out of our pocket. That came out of our, so it's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul. But I do appreciate that. I will put this down as far as one of the issues. You're right, I can't solve it, but it doesn't mean that I can't take it up to where it needs to go. I think there's some legislation that needs to change, so especially for our older kids. We've got to get some of this stuff going, and I know I have 2 minutes left. You know, I just want to say that I'm really thankful for being here. This is really good. We have to have these ongoing conversations. No topic is to be avoided. I don't care how sensitive it is. If you guys want to say your department is just doing a crappy job, I'm listening to you. You know, I hear it. Together we're going to do better, but it comes from doing this stuff and talking and just saying, I didn't realize this was such an issue. You know, I didn't realize that was such an issue. You know, how do we do stuff? I know that one of the things that we did is when we have a child abuse report, so you guys will know real quick, in the past we would fax out to law enforcement, which would take 3 or 4 weeks, because apparently we have bad fax machines. I don't know. You know, we have 63 law enforcement agencies, and they all have their little, so what we did at the hotline is we did an automated system, so when electronically it goes up to the state to report child abuse, it electronically goes to law enforcement. And some law enforcement have it all the way going to the patrol cars. They're actually beating us out there on some referrals. Because what happens is they'll go out there and there'll be no report, or we'll go out there first and then we don't talk. So now we have people outstationed in law enforcement, we're moving people to be outstationed in schools. Why? The more we can communicate, the more we can educate people. The more we can say, this is a good referral, you know, this isn't a good referral, but let me tell you where to go. See, before the hotline, the call would come in, we wouldn't tell you where to, well, we tell you where to go, no. We'd say, we don't handle that call, thank you, click. Now it's, gee, we don't handle that call, but let me give you a service that does handle that call. That's what we should be doing. So I think that we've made a lot of progress. Do we have a long way to go? Oh yeah, we have a long way to go, folks. But I think we're getting there as a community partner, as people working together for the benefit of these kids. I see it. I truly see it. And you know, most of you know me honestly enough. If I didn't see it, I'd tell you I don't see it. So I do see it. But I just want to say thank you very much. It's been a pleasure for me to be here today. Thank you.